Remove her from my house." Duke Adrian Wycliffe did not look at his wife as two footmen opened the ballroom doors. A blade of winter air cut through the music, scattering candle flames and lifting the silver ribbons on Duchess Eleanor's gown. Only moments earlier, Sir Malcolm Rook had collapsed beside the supper table. Now he writhed across the polished floor, one hand clawing at his throat while a physician shouted for space. A crystal glass lay shattered beside him, staining the carpet with dark red wine. Lady Beatrice Harcourt stood near Adrian, pale and trembling, though her voice had been steady enough when she made the accusation. "I saw her grace pour it herself." Every face in the ballroom turned toward Eleanor. "That is a lie," Eleanor said. Beatrice pressed a lace handkerchief to her lips. "I wish it were." Adrian finally faced his wife. His expression held no uncertainty, only the cold anger of a man who believed judgment had already been delivered. "The wine came from your private cabinet," he said. "My cabinet has not contained Burgundy since October. Your key opened it." "Then someone used my key." A murmur passed among the guests. Eleanor could feel their suspicion spreading faster than the poison through Sir Malcolm's veins. She stepped toward the fallen man, but Adrian blocked her path. "Do not touch him." The command struck harder than if he had slapped her. For 9 years, Eleanor had supervised Blackthorn Hall's kitchens, stores, and infirmary. She had prevented fever from sweeping through the servants' quarters, identified contaminated grain before it reached the tenants, and kept meticulous records of every medicine held on the estate. Adrian knew all of that. Yet he looked at her as though she were a stranger caught holding a knife. "The magistrate has been summoned," he said. "Until he arrives, you will leave this room." Beatrice moved closer to him. Hanging from her wrist was a narrow ring of brass keys, including the key to Eleanor's wine cabinet. Eleanor stared at it. "You gave her my keys?" "Lady Beatrice will assume control of the household until this matter is resolved." The humiliation was deliberate, and it was public. Weeks earlier, Eleanor had warned Adrian that bottles were disappearing from the lower cellar. Deliveries recorded in the ledgers never reached the dining rooms, and 2 servants who questioned the discrepancy had abruptly resigned. Adrian had dismissed her concerns as an attempt to discredit Beatrice, whose late father had once been his political patron. Now he was handing that woman every room Eleanor had been denied permission to investigate. "You could examine the seal on the bottle," Eleanor said. "You could question the servants. You could ask why Beatrice entered my cabinet before the ball." Beatrice's face tightened. Adrian noticed, but chose to ignore it. "I have heard enough." "No, you have heard only what allows you to condemn me quickly." Silence settled over the ballroom. Something flickered across Adrian's face. Shame, perhaps, or merely wounded pride that she had challenged him before his guests. "Take her outside," he said. The footman hesitated. Both had served Eleanor for years. "Your Grace," one began. "Now." Eleanor spared them the disgrace of laying hands upon her. She lifted her chin and walked toward the open doors. No one offered her a cloak. Behind her, the physician called for warm water. Beatrice began issuing orders with Eleanor's keys chiming at her wrist. Adrian said nothing as his wife stepped onto the terrace in a silk gown and thin evening slippers. The doors closed. Music, voices, and panic disappeared behind glass. Snow had covered the gardens in a white silence. Cold pierced Eleanor's sleeves and tightened around her ribs, but she refused to turn and plead for entry. Adrian had made his choice before the entire county. Whatever happened next, she would never forget how easily he had surrendered her authority, and how eagerly he had believed the worst of her. She descended the terrace steps. A dark shape lay near the frozen fountain. At first, Eleanor thought it was a fallen bird. Then she recognized Sir Malcolm's left glove. The physician had removed both gloves after his collapse, yet only one remained inside the ballroom. She picked it up. The leather was still warm. Someone had carried it outside within the last few minutes. Eleanor slipped her fingers beneath the lining and felt a stiff edge sewn into the cuff. Using the pin from her hair, she cut one thread and pulled out a narrow strip of paper. Figures filled it in cramped black ink. Dates, payments, initials. She recognized the accounts immediately. They belonged to Blackthorn's charitable fund. the money intended for tenants' medicine and winter coal. Beside several withdrawals appeared Beatrice Harcourt's initials. At the bottom stood a much larger payment authorized with the letter W. But the handwriting was not Adrian's. A sound came from the eastern path. Eleanor looked up. A hooded figure moved between the yew trees toward the abandoned ice cellar. The figure paused, perhaps sensing her gaze, then vanished beyond the stone wall. Eleanor followed. The ice cellar had been sealed since autumn after part of its roof collapsed, yet fresh footprints marked the snow, and the iron lock hung open. She pulled the door aside. A sour smell rose from the darkness. Wine, damp stone, and something metallic. "Who is there?" No answer. Eleanor entered and found a lantern burning on a crate. 3 empty wine bottles stood beside it, each bearing a duplicate of her household seal. Then came a scrape beneath the floor. She moved the crate and uncovered an iron ring set into the stone. Pulling it revealed a concealed hatch and narrow steps descending into blackness. A man lay chained below. His coat was torn, his face bruised, and dried blood covered one side of his head. Eleanor recognized him as Nathaniel Price, Adrian's former cellar steward, the man who had supposedly stolen estate funds and drowned while fleeing Blackthorn 3 weeks earlier. His eyes opened. "Your Grace," he whispered. Eleanor knelt beside him. "Who did this?" Nathaniel's gaze fixed on the paper in her hand. "They know you found the accounts. Who knows?" His breathing faltered. Eleanor gripped his shoulder. "Nathaniel, Sir Malcolm has been poisoned. They are blaming me." A terrible recognition crossed his face. "Then it has begun." "What has begun?" Nathaniel tried to lift himself, but the chain dragged him back. "The poison was never meant to kill Sir Malcolm." Eleanor went still. "Who was the intended victim?" Before Nathaniel could answer, the cellar door slammed shut above them. A key turned in the lock. Eleanor rushed up the steps and struck the cellar door with both hands. "Open this door." No answer came from outside. She pressed her ear against the wood. Snow crunched beneath retreating footsteps. Then silence swallowed the sound. Below her, Nathaniel groaned. Eleanor took the lantern and returned to him. The chain around his ankle was secured by a heavy iron lock. She searched the crates, finding imported wine, folded packing straw, and several bottles bearing counterfeit impressions of her household seal. A rusted meat hook hung on the wall. She forced its pointed end into the lock. Her fingers had grown stiff from the cold, and twice the hook slipped, cutting her palm. On the third attempt, the mechanism snapped. Nathaniel tried to stand but collapsed against her. "We must leave," Eleanor said. "Is there another way out?" He pointed toward the rear wall. "Drainage passage, behind the shelves." Together they pushed aside a wooden rack, exposing a narrow tunnel. Eleanor entered first, holding the lantern low. Meltwater soaked the hem of her gown as they crawled beneath the frozen garden. "Tell me who the poison was meant for," she whispered. "The Duke." Eleanor stopped. Nathaniel's face appeared behind her in the dim light. "Sir Malcolm took his Grace's glass by mistake," he continued. "The footman changed the seating arrangement after Lady Beatrice complained of a draught." Eleanor wanted to reject the accusation. Beatrice might have schemed to seize her authority, but murdering Adrian was something darker. "Did you see her poison it?" "No, but I saw her secretary bring the bottles into Blackthorn. Mr. Silas Vane paid me to place them in your cabinet." "And you agreed?" Shame lowered Nathaniel's eyes. "My daughter needed surgery. Vane promised money. He said the bottles contained smuggled wine and that your seal would keep the customs officers away. When I discovered the false accounts, I tried to warn the Duke." "What happened?" "His secretary intercepted my letter. That night, Vane's men brought me here." The passage ended beneath an iron grate. Eleanor pushed until it lifted into a disused greenhouse. Moonlight shone through broken glass, revealing rows of dead vines. Nathaniel could barely walk. Eleanor tore a strip from her underskirt and bound the wound on his head. "Can you reach the village?" "Not without being seen. Then we go to the infirmary cottage. Mrs. Dawes will hide you." Nathaniel caught her wrist. "You cannot trust anyone carrying the Duke's orders. Vane has used his Grace's signature for months." Adrian would recognize a forgery, not if he signed blank warrants himself. The words landed heavily. Adrian had recently authorized Beatrice and Vane to reorganize the estate's charitable accounts. Eleanor had protested when he signed documents without reading them. He had accused her of resenting his decision to give another woman responsibility. That carelessness had now armed his enemies. A bell rang from the house. Once, twice, then 6 rapid strokes, the signal summoning the estate constables. "They are coming for me," Eleanor said. She helped Nathaniel across the frozen orchard. Every movement through the snow seemed impossibly loud. Near the infirmary cottage, a lantern appeared between the trees. "Hide," Eleanor whispered. Nathaniel slipped behind a low stone wall. The approaching figure was Thomas Bell, the young footman who had hesitated when Adrian ordered Eleanor outside. Blood marked his collar. "Your Grace." He struggled to catch his breath. "I have been looking for you. What happened?" "Sir Malcolm is alive, but Lady Beatrice found the physician's case open. A vial of the same poison was inside. That proves nothing. It was wrapped in a handkerchief embroidered with your initials." Eleanor felt the trap closing. "Where is the physician?" "Locked in the west dressing room." "Mr. Vane accused him of helping you." Eleanor glanced toward the manor. Torches moved across the terrace as constables searched the grounds. "Thomas, listen carefully. Nathaniel Price is alive." The footman stared at her. Nathaniel emerged from behind the wall. Thomas crossed himself. "They said you drowned." "They wanted everyone to believe it," Nathaniel replied. A shout carried from the orchard. Eleanor opened the infirmary cottage and guided both men inside. She lit no candles. The room smelled of dried lavender, alcohol, and old wood. "Thomas, why were you searching for me?" He removed a folded card from his coat. "Sir Malcolm regained consciousness for less than a minute. He gave me this before Mr. Vane entered. It was a place card from the supper table. Adrian's name had been crossed out, and Sir Malcolm's written beneath it. On the reverse were 4 words. Ask who changed the seats. Hooves thundered outside. A carriage stopped before the cottage. Eleanor moved toward the window, expecting constables. Instead, Lady Beatrice stepped down, wrapped in Eleanor's fur cloak. Silas Vane followed with a pistol in his hand. "You cannot let them find me," Nathaniel whispered. "If they do, the Duke will be dead before morning." The cottage door handle began to turn. Thomas extinguished the lamp while Eleanor guided Nathaniel behind the medicine shelves. The cottage door opened. Lady Beatrice entered first, wearing Eleanor's fur cloak as though it already belonged to her. Silas Vane followed with the pistol hidden beside his coat. "Duchess Eleanor," Beatrice said, "your husband is extremely concerned. Concerned enough to send an armed man? Sir Malcolm was poisoned. We cannot take chances." Vane surveyed the dark room. His gaze paused on the wet footprints crossing the floor. "You are not alone." "I came here for a cloak," Eleanor replied. "Since someone neglected to give me one before throwing me into the snow." Beatrice's expression hardened. "The magistrate is waiting at the house. Return quietly, and perhaps Adrian will spare you the humiliation of being dragged through your own garden." Eleanor looked at the keys hanging from Beatrice's wrist. "Why did you change the supper seats?" For the first time, Beatrice faltered. "I did no such thing. Sir Malcolm wrote that someone changed them. He drank from the glass intended for Adrian." Vane stepped forward. "Give me the card." Thomas moved between them. "You will not threaten her Grace." Vane struck him across the face with the pistol. Thomas crashed against the table, sending glass jars to the floor. From behind the shelves came the scrape of a chain. Vane turned immediately. Nathaniel emerged before Eleanor could stop him. Beatrice went white. "You," she whispered. Vane raised the pistol, but Eleanor seized a jar of medicinal alcohol and hurled it into the fire grate. Flames surged upward. Vane recoiled as Eleanor pulled Nathaniel toward the rear door. "Run!" Thomas overturned the medicine table behind them, blocking the passage. Eleanor and Nathaniel escaped into the garden as Beatrice screamed for the guards. They had crossed only half the orchard when torches appeared ahead. Adrian stood among 4 constables. His formal coat was unfastened, and snow clung to his dark hair. Relief flashed across his face when he saw Eleanor. It vanished the moment he recognized the man beside her. Nathaniel Price? He is alive, Eleanor said. He was imprisoned beneath your ice cellar. Adrian stared at the former steward. This man stole from the estate. No, Nathaniel rasped. Mr. Vane forged the accounts. Vane and Beatrice emerged from the cottage behind them. That is another lie, Vane called. We found the Duchess hiding him with stolen documents. Adrian's gaze moved to the blood-stained paper in Eleanor's hand. Give it to me. She hesitated. Only hours ago, she would have trusted him with anything. Now she remembered the blank warrants, the keys at Beatrice's wrist, and the speed with which he had condemned her. First order Vane to surrender his weapon. Adrian's jaw tightened. Eleanor, this is not the time to challenge me. It is precisely the time. That man held Nathaniel prisoner on your land. You have no proof of that. The chains on his ankle are not proof enough? Adrian looked down. Nathaniel's broken shackle remained attached above his boot. Beatrice hurried to the Duke's side. Adrian, she is manipulating you. Nathaniel helped her steal the charitable funds. They poisoned Sir Malcolm when they realized the accounts would be examined. Nathaniel tried to protest, but a fit of coughing bent him double. Eleanor held him upright. Sir Malcolm drank from Adrian's place, she said. Someone intended to poison my husband. The constables exchanged uneasy glances. Adrian looked toward Beatrice. Did you alter the seating arrangement? No, Lady Morton asked the servants to move her. The card bears Sir Malcolm's warning, Eleanor said. Ask Thomas. Vane glanced toward the cottage. Flames now flickered behind its windows. The footman is destroying evidence, he said. Adrian ordered 2 constables to extinguish the fire. As they ran past, Vane stepped close enough to Beatrice to whisper something Eleanor could not hear. Then Nathaniel suddenly pointed at Vane's hand. The ring. Vane wore a heavy gold signet engraved with a coiled serpent. I saw that impression on the payment orders, Nathaniel said, beneath the Duke's false seal. Vane concealed his hand. Adrian's uncertainty deepened, but he still did not command the man's arrest. Eleanor understood then that her husband was afraid, not merely of being wrong about her, but of what admitting it would reveal about his own negligence. Vane had advised him for years. Beatrice's family controlled votes Adrian needed in Parliament. To question them would mean confronting the possibility that he had endangered his estate for ambition. A horse galloped through the gates. The magistrate's clerk dismounted, carrying a leather case. Your Grace, he called to Adrian. We searched the Duchess's rooms as ordered. Eleanor's blood chilled. The clerk opened the case and withdrew a folded sheet. We found instructions for preparing the poison in her Grace's handwriting. That is impossible, Eleanor said. He handed the paper to Adrian. Adrian read it beneath the torchlight. Eleanor watched his expression close once more. It is her hand, he said. Then let me see it. He passed her the sheet. The writing looked almost identical to hers, but the quantities were wrong. Whoever copied her medical notes understood her script, yet knew nothing about preparing the medicine. At the bottom of the page appeared her signature. Eleanor turned it toward the torch. A faint line shimmered beneath the ink. The words had been written over another document. She rubbed the corner between her fingers and smelled lavender oil, the solvent she used to remove ink from medical labels. This page was altered, she said. Someone erased the original writing. Beatrice laughed softly. How convenient. Eleanor held the paper toward Adrian. Give me 10 minutes and the right reagent. I can recover what was written underneath. Vane's face changed. Only slightly, but Eleanor saw it. So did Nathaniel. Before Adrian could answer, a constable ran from the house. Your Grace, Sir Malcolm has awakened. Hope rose in Eleanor's chest. The constable stopped before Adrian, breathing hard. He named the person who gave him the wine. Everyone fell silent. He said it was the Duchess. Adrian's expression hardened. Arrest her. 2 constables moved toward Eleanor, but she held up the altered page. Sir Malcolm was barely conscious. What exactly did he say? The messenger hesitated. Mr. Vane asked whether the Duchess had handed him the wine. Sir Malcolm nodded. So Vane supplied both the name and the accusation. He identified you, Vane said. No. A poisoned man responded to a leading question. Eleanor turned to Adrian. "Give me 10 minutes to examine this page and question Sir Malcolm without Vane standing over him. If you are innocent, the magistrate will establish it," Adrian replied. "You expelled me, surrendered my keys, searched my rooms, and allowed your secretary to question the only witness. You are not waiting for justice, you are arranging its answer." The constables stopped, uncertain whether to obey Adrian or avoid interfering with a duchess who had not yet been formally charged. Nathaniel suddenly collapsed beside her. Eleanor caught him before his head struck the ground. His skin was cold, and blood had soaked through the cloth around his wound. "He needs the infirmary," she said. "He is an accused thief," Beatrice replied. "He is also the only living man who can explain what happened in your cellar." That silenced the constables. Adrian looked at the broken shackle around Nathaniel's ankle. For the first time, doubt overcame his anger. "Take them both inside," he ordered. "The Duchess remains under guard." Eleanor did not thank him. Allowing her to save a wounded man was not mercy. Inside Blackthorn Hall, the guests crowded the corridors, whispering as she passed. Eleanor entered the infirmary with Nathaniel and immediately ordered hot water, clean linen, and warmed bricks for the bed. Thomas remained near the door while 2 constables watched from the corridor. "Keep him awake," Eleanor told the physician. "He has been exposed to the cold for hours." She then placed the alleged poison recipe beneath a strong lamp. The handwriting resembled hers, but the figures had been copied by someone who did not understand their meaning. The quantities described would have produced a useless, bitter liquid, not the substance that had struck Sir Malcolm. More importantly, the page had been cut from one of Blackthorn's account books. A faint column line remained beneath the writing. "This is not a medical note," Eleanor said. "It was once part of a financial record." Adrian leaned closer. At the bottom stood his genuine signature. "You signed the original page," she continued. "Someone removed it from the charitable accounts, erased the figures, and wrote this false recipe above them." Vane gave a dismissive laugh. "Or your wife reused a document carrying your signature because she knew it would appear authentic." Eleanor looked at him. "Then you will have no objection to our examining the charitable ledgers." A small pause followed. It was enough. Nathaniel opened his eyes. "The ledgers in Mr. Vane's office are copies." Every face turned toward the bed. "The real books were kept in the old cellar," he continued weakly. "I hid one when I discovered the missing payments." "Where?" Eleanor asked. "Behind the 3rd wine rack." Vane stepped toward him. "The word of a thief proves nothing. The word of a man found in chains beneath this estate proves that someone feared what he knew," Eleanor replied. A servant appeared at the infirmary door. "Your Grace, Sir Malcolm has awakened again." Eleanor immediately moved toward the guest chamber. Vane tried to follow, but Thomas blocked his path. "The physician requested quiet. I represent the Duke, and I am ordering you to remain here," Adrian said. Vane stared at him. Adrian did not look away. It was not an apology, nor did it undo what he had done, but it was the first time that night he had denied Vane access to a witness. Sir Malcolm lay pale against the pillows. His breathing was shallow, and his hands trembled above the blanket. Eleanor sat beside him. "Sir Malcolm, do you know me?" His eyes found her face. After several seconds he nodded. "Did you see who poured the wine?" He tried to answer, but only a rough breath emerged. "Do not force yourself. Show me what you remember." His gaze moved past Eleanor toward the people gathered near the door. Beatrice stood beside Adrian, still wearing Eleanor's fur cloak. The brass keys hung from her wrist. Sir Malcolm lifted one shaking hand and pointed. Beatrice stepped backward. "He means the Duchess," Vane said from the corridor. "Those are her keys." Sir Malcolm's fingers closed weakly, as if grasping an invisible ring. Eleanor understood. "You did not recognize the woman's face," she said. "You recognized the household keys." He nodded. Every gaze fell upon Beatrice's wrist. Adrian's voice became dangerously quiet. "Why were you carrying Eleanor's keys before Sir Malcolm collapsed?" "I was not." "The footman saw them," Thomas said from the doorway. "Lady Beatrice entered the lower passage with them before supper." Beatrice's composure cracked. Her Grace must have given them to me." "I did not," Eleanor said. Sir Malcolm struggled to speak again. This time, Eleanor lowered her ear close enough to hear two broken words. "Winter. Fund." Nathaniel had been telling the truth. Sir Malcolm had discovered the missing charitable money, and the poison had silenced him before he could reveal it. The altered seating was not meant to place him in Adrian's chair by accident. It was meant to make everyone believe the Duke had been the intended victim, and that his wife had tried to murder him. Eleanor rose. Sir Malcolm was always the target. Adrian stared at her. "Then why move him to my place?" "To give you a reason to believe the poison was meant for you." She looked directly at Beatrice. "And to make my supposed motive appear obvious." A bell sounded from the courtyard. Nathaniel dragged himself upright in the infirmary bed. "The cellar," he whispered. "They will remove the real ledger before the magistrate searches it." Adrian turned toward Vane, but Vane was no longer standing in the corridor. At Beatrice's wrist, the key to the old cellar was also gone. Adrian ordered the constables to search the lower cellar. Eleanor stopped them. "Vane knows every passage in this house. If he took the cellar key, he wants us to follow him there." "Then what do you suggest?" Adrian asked. "Seal the gates and search the stable. He cannot destroy the ledger where the smoke would be seen." "He will try to remove it from Blackthorn." Adrian gave the order. For once, he did not question her judgment. Beatrice quietly backed toward the door. "Remain where you are," Eleanor said. "I have done nothing. You carried my keys before Sir Malcolm was poisoned. You changed the supper seats and accused me before the physician even identified the substance." Beatrice looked to Adrian for protection. "Tell me the truth," he said. "Did Vane give you Eleanor's keys?" "He said the Duchess had become careless with the household accounts. He asked me to inspect them." "And you believed you had the right?" "You gave me authority over the household." "After Sir Malcolm collapsed," Adrian said. Beatrice's silence answered him. Eleanor removed the remaining keys from her wrist. "How long have you been entering my storerooms?" Beatrice lifted her chin. "Long enough to learn that Blackthorn depends upon you far more than it should." There was no remorse in her voice, only resentment. A constable returned from the cellar. Behind the third wine rack, they had found an empty compartment. Dust outlined the shape of a large ledger, but the book itself was gone. Nathaniel closed his eyes. "I hid it there 2 weeks ago." "Who knew?" Eleanor asked. "Only Sir Malcolm. I sent him a message before Vane's men seized me." The answer clarified the scheme. Sir Malcolm had not been poisoned because he drank from Adrian's place. He had been placed there so everyone would assume the Duke was the intended victim. In truth, Vane needed to silence the only man who knew where the missing accounts led. Thomas rushed into the room. "A coal wagon has just left through the eastern service gate. The driver carried an order bearing His Grace's signature." Adrian went still. "I issued no such order." Nathaniel looked at him. "Was it one of the blank warrants?" Adrian did not answer immediately. Eleanor understood before he spoke. "How many did you sign?" 6. "For Vane?" "He said customs officers might need authority to search the wine shipments." "You signed 6 documents without names or destinations?" "I trusted my secretary." "No," Eleanor said. "You trusted the influence he promised you." Adrian's face tightened, but he did not deny it. Outside, carriage wheels rattled faintly beyond the trees. "The ledger is in that wagon," Eleanor said, "hidden beneath the coal." Adrian reached for his coat. "I will bring it back. You will go nowhere until you tell me what those missing accounts contain." His surprise revealed that he had expected obedience, even now. Eleanor stepped closer. "You ignored my warnings because investigating Vane might have exposed your own negligence. You gave Beatrice my authority because she praised decisions I questioned. Tonight, when she accused me, you chose the version of events that protected your pride. I was wrong. You were warned. That is not the same thing." A heavy silence followed. At last, Adrian faced the constables. "Duchess Eleanor will direct the search. You will obey her as you would obey me." Eleanor took her winter cloak from Beatrice's shoulders. "This is not authority you are giving me," she said. "It is authority you had no right to take before any evidence was examined." She fastened the cloak and turned to Thomas. "Which road did the wagon take?" "The bridge road. But if Vane reaches the old lime quarry, he can burn the ledger without the flames being seen from the estate. Eleanor selected 4 loyal servants and ordered fresh horses prepared. Nathaniel was too weak to travel, but before she left, he caught her hand. "The final page," he whispered. "That is what Vane fears." "What is written on it?" "The names of everyone who received money from the winter fund." "Is Beatrice's name there?" Nathaniel glanced toward her. "Not her name, her father's." Beatrice seized a glass medicine bottle from the table and hurled it into the lamp. The room fell into darkness. Someone struck Thomas from behind. Eleanor heard the door open and Beatrice's footsteps racing into the corridor. By the time another lamp was lit, she had vanished. On the floor lay one of Eleanor's brass keys, the key to the eastern service gate. Eleanor closed her hand around the key. Beatrice opened the eastern gate for Vane. Adrian ordered 2 constables to search the house, but Eleanor shook her head. She will not remain here. She knows the ledger can connect her family to the stolen money. Thomas appeared in the doorway, pressing a cloth to the back of his head. "I saw her cross the courtyard," he said. "She took a horse from the south stable." "She is following the wagon," Eleanor replied. Adrian reached for his pistol. "You are wounded, exhausted, and still thinking like a man who can command this problem out of existence," she said. "Remain here, protect Sir Malcolm, Nathaniel, and every document we have recovered. You expect me to let you ride after an armed man. I expect you to perform the duty you neglected earlier, preserve the witnesses instead of silencing them." The answer struck him, but he accepted it. Eleanor took Thomas and 3 estate men through the eastern gate. Snow had begun to cover the wagon tracks, yet the deep grooves remained visible beneath the trees. They rode hard toward the bridge road. Thomas drew alongside her. "If Vane reaches the quarry, we may not find him before dawn." "He will not go directly there." "How can you know? The wagon is too heavy. The western bridge cannot support a full coal load. You think the coal is false weight?" "I think the ledger is not the only thing he is moving. They found the wagon near the old stone bridge. One wheel had sunk into the frozen mud, and the driver was attempting to free it." Beatrice stood beside him, still wearing her silver ball gown beneath a dark riding cloak. Silas Vane emerged from behind the wagon with a pistol. "You should have accepted your husband's judgment," he said, "and allowed you to empty the winter fund." The money was already gone. "Your only choice was whether to be blamed quietly." Eleanor looked at the wagon. Several sacks lay beneath a shallow layer of coal. One had split open, revealing account books rather than fuel. "You poisoned Sir Malcolm because he discovered the missing payments." "I did not pour the wine." Beatrice looked sharply at him. Vane smiled. Lady Beatrice insisted upon proving her loyalty. "You said the dose would only weaken him," Beatrice replied. "You wanted Eleanor removed. Do not pretend you objected to the method." Thomas and the estate men began to spread out, but Vane pointed the pistol toward the wagon. "Come closer, and the records burn." The driver opened a lantern. Oil glistened across several of the sacks. Eleanor dismounted. "If you destroy the ledger, Nathaniel can still testify." "A disgraced steward who accepted my money? Sir Malcolm can testify, if he survives." "And Beatrice?" Vane glanced at her. That single look revealed the truth. Beatrice had never been his partner. She was another witness he intended to discard. Beatrice saw it as well. "You promised to clear my father's debts," she said. "I promised you Eleanor's place. For a few hours, you had it." Vane seized the lantern from the driver. Before he could throw it, Beatrice struck his arm with her riding crop. The lantern fell into the snow. Thomas rushed forward, but Vane fired. The shot tore through Thomas's sleeve and struck the wagon's wooden side. One of the estate men tackled the driver. Another pulled Beatrice away as Vane fled across the bridge on her horse. "Let him go," Eleanor ordered. "Save the records." Oil had already begun dripping from the sacks. Eleanor climbed into the wagon and threw the ledgers into the snow, while Thomas and the others helped. They recovered 6 books before a small flame caught beneath the rear axle. The fire spread quickly through the dry timber. "The last book," Thomas shouted. A thick ledger remained wedged beneath the driver's seat. Eleanor climbed back into the smoke and pulled it free moments before the rear of the wagon collapsed. Heat scorched her gloves as Thomas dragged her clear. The rescued books lay scattered across the snow. Most contained false accounts prepared in matching handwriting. Only the final ledger was older, its leather cover marked with Eleanor's inventory number. She opened it. Page after page recorded payments supposedly made for medicine, coal, and food. Beside each withdrawal appeared the name of a supplier who had never delivered anything to Blackthorn. Then Eleanor reached the final page. It had been torn out. Beatrice stared at the ragged edge. "Vane did not take it," she whispered. Eleanor looked at her. Beatrice slowly reached inside her cloak and removed a folded sheet. "My father's name is on this page," she said. "So is the Duke's signature." She held it over the burning wagon. "Let me leave Blackthorn before dawn, or the only proof connecting Adrian to the stolen money goes into the fire." Eleanor did not move toward Beatrice. "If you burn that page, you will not save your father's name. You will only destroy the evidence showing where Vane sent the money. My family will be ruined. Your family accepted money meant for sick tenants and freezing children. My father borrowed it," Beatrice insisted. "Vane promised the accounts would be repaired before anyone noticed, and when they could not be repaired, you helped him accuse me." The burning wagon cracked behind her. Sparks rose into the snow, but Beatrice kept the folded page above the flames. "Promise that I may leave," she said. "I cannot promise immunity for poisoning Sir Malcolm. I was told the dose would not kill him. But you watched him collapse, then immediately named me. You knew exactly what Vane intended to accomplish." Beatrice's hand began to tremble. Eleanor lowered her voice. "Vane has abandoned you. If you destroy that page, he will blame every missing pound and every drop of poison on you. It will be his word against yours, and he has already prepared the false records." Beatrice glanced toward the bridge where Vane had disappeared. For the first time, fear displaced her defiance. "What can you offer me?" "The truth recorded before witnesses. You may confess your part, identify Vane's instructions, and explain what happened to the money. I will not conceal your crimes, but neither will I allow him to place his crimes upon you." Thomas and the estate men stood close enough to hear every word. Beatrice slowly withdrew the page from above the fire. "Vane came to me 6 months ago," she said. "My father's debts were about to become public. Silas offered to pay the creditors if I persuaded Adrian to let him reorganize the winter fund." "You encouraged Adrian to distrust Eleanor," Thomas said. Beatrice looked at him without denying it. "I told Adrian that the Duchess resented his political ambitions. Whenever she questioned an account, I suggested she was trying to embarrass him. Eleanor had suspected as much, but hearing it spoken aloud still hurt." "And the poison?" she asked. "Silas gave me the bottle. He said Sir Malcolm had discovered the missing payments and needed to appear ill until the ledger was removed. I changed the place cards so everyone would believe Adrian had been the intended victim." "You wore my keys so Sir Malcolm would mistake you for me." "Yes." "Then you accused me before anyone examined the wine." Beatrice lowered the page. "I wanted your position. I believed that once Adrian expelled you, he would place the household under my control." "He did," Eleanor said. "For less than an hour." Beatrice flinched. Eleanor held out her hand. "Give me the page." After a long hesitation, Beatrice surrendered it. The paper listed withdrawals from the winter fund over 9 months. Payments had passed through false suppliers before reaching creditors belonging to Beatrice's father. Larger amounts went to a shipping company controlled by Vane. At the bottom stood Adrian's genuine signature. Beside it, in smaller writing, appeared a note, "Approved without review. Original vouchers held by S. Vane." The words were not in Adrian's hand. Nathaniel had likely written them while auditing the accounts. Thomas stared at the amount. His Grace signed away nearly the entire winter reserve. "He may not have known the figures were false," Eleanor said, "but he signed them without asking where the money would go. That distinction mattered. Adrian had not planned the theft, but his carelessness had made it possible." Eleanor folded the page and placed it inside her gown. She ordered 2 men to escort Beatrice back to Blackthorn. The driver was bound and placed under guard. Thomas gathered the recovered ledgers into the least damaged carriage. "What about Vane?" he asked. "He has lost the books, Beatrice, and his driver. He will either flee the county or return for the papers Adrian signed. You think he will go back to the house? He cannot disappear while documents bearing Adrian's name still connect him to the theft. They reached Blackthorn shortly before dawn. The ballroom guests had been prevented from leaving, and every gate was now guarded. Sir Malcolm remained alive. Nathaniel was conscious enough to identify the recovered ledger as the original. Adrian waited in the library. Eleanor placed the final page before him. He read the withdrawals, Beatrice's confession, and the note beside his signature. The color left his face. I did not know the winter fund was being emptied. You chose not to know. Vane brought the papers among ordinary estate warrants, and I warned you that the figures did not match the deliveries. Adrian looked down. You called me jealous, Eleanor continued. Then you gave my keys to the woman helping him steal from us. I cannot undo that. No, but you can decide whether you will hide it. Before he could answer, a constable entered carrying a sealed envelope. This was found in Mr. Vane's office. Adrian broke the seal. Inside was a prepared statement bearing his ducal crest. It accused Eleanor and Nathaniel of stealing the winter fund together, and authorized the destruction of the old accounts as fraudulent copies. Only one thing was missing: Adrian's signature. A second sheet lay beneath it, a private letter from Vane, promising that if Adrian signed before the magistrate arrived, the scandal would end with Eleanor's arrest. Eleanor watched her husband read the offer. Outside the library, the county's most influential guests were waiting to hear whom the Duke of Blackthorn would condemn. This time, Adrian could no longer claim that he did not understand what he was signing. Adrian placed Vane's prepared statement on the desk. He expected me to sign this, because every earlier decision taught him that you would, Eleanor said. Adrian read the accusation again. It claimed Eleanor had manipulated the accounts, conspired with Nathaniel, and poisoned Sir Malcolm when he threatened to expose them. All it required was his name. If I sign, he said quietly, the missing money may never be traced to Blackthorn. It will be traced to Nathaniel and me instead. I know, and you could preserve your committee appointment. Adrian looked at the ducal seal beside the inkstand. Only hours earlier, he had condemned Eleanor before examining a bottle, questioning a servant, or allowing her to approach the poisoned man. Now Vane had offered him the same bargain in writing: sacrifice his wife and protect his reputation. Adrian folded the unsigned statement and returned it to the envelope. This will be given to the magistrate as evidence. Eleanor felt no relief. One correct decision could not erase all the choices that had made it necessary. Adrian took a blank sheet and began writing. He recorded that he had signed uncompleted warrants at Vane's request. He admitted that Eleanor had repeatedly warned him about missing deliveries and irregular accounts. He named every document he remembered signing and authorized the seizure of Vane's office, company records, and personal correspondence. When he finished, he signed his full name. "What are you doing?" Eleanor asked. "Creating a record Vane cannot rewrite. You understand that this may end your political career." "It should." Adrian pressed his seal into the wax, then handed the statement to Thomas. "Send one copy to the county magistrate and another to Lord Ashcombe in London. Use separate writers." Thomas accepted the letter but looked toward Eleanor before leaving. She nodded. That small gesture did not escape Adrian. His servants no longer trusted his command without her judgment. Beatrice was brought into the library under guard. Her riding cloak had been removed, leaving her silver gown stained with soot and mud. Adrian faced her. "Did you poison Sir Malcolm?" Beatrice looked at Eleanor, then at the witnesses surrounding her. "Yes." The word came without tears. "Vane told me the dose would make him ill, not kill him. I changed the place cards, carried Eleanor's keys, and gave Sir Malcolm the glass. And afterward you accused my wife." "You wanted to believe me?" Adrian flinched. "You had already decided Eleanor opposed your future," Beatrice continued. "I merely gave that suspicion a crime. That does not excuse you." "No, but neither does Vane's manipulation excuse you." Eleanor watched Adrian absorb the truth without defending himself. "Why did you help steal the winter fund?" he asked. "My father owed more than our estate was worth. Vane paid his creditors through false suppliers. In exchange, I persuaded you to approve his accounts. And you thought I would make you mistress of Blackthorn." Beatrice's expression tightened. "You handed me her keys before Sir Malcolm's body had been lifted from the floor. Was I wrong to believe it?" Adrian had no answer. Eleanor placed the recovered ledger, the torn final page, the false poison instructions, and Vane's unsigned statement inside a locked document case. "The accusation was made publicly," she said. "The evidence must be heard publicly." "The magistrate has not yet arrived," Adrian replied. "We do not need a trial tonight. We need every guest to hear that the charge against me was unsupported, and that you no longer stand behind it." Adrian looked toward the ballroom. "They will see what I allowed to happen." "That is why you are afraid to enter." He met her eyes. "Yes." It was the first honest answer he had given her that night. Adrian summoned the household. He ordered the ballroom doors opened and asked every guest, servant, physician, and constable who had witnessed Eleanor's expulsion to return. Sir Malcolm was carried in under the physician's care. Nathaniel entered with Thomas's support. Beatrice remained under guard beside the windows. Eleanor stood at the same place where the shattered wineglass had fallen. Adrian did not take his position at the head of the room. He stood several paces behind her. Before Eleanor could begin, hoofbeats thundered across the courtyard. A constable entered. "Your Grace, the Northern Patrol has detained Mr. Vane at the estate boundary. He was carrying money, a false passport, and several letters taken from his office." Adrian looked at Eleanor. She had sealed the gates before they left for the bridge. Vane had been trapped by the order he thought no one but the Duke had authority to give. "Bring him here," Eleanor said. Moments later, Silas Vane was led into the ballroom with his hands bound. His gaze moved from the rescued ledger to Beatrice, then to Adrian. At last, it settled upon Eleanor. The woman he had expected to see arrested now stood before the witnesses with Blackthorn's evidence in her hands. Eleanor opened the document case. "Let us begin with the glass you placed in my cabinet." Vane's expression remained composed. "I placed nothing in your cabinet." Eleanor lifted one of the counterfeit wine bottles recovered from the ice cellar. "The seal resembles mine, but the engraved border is incomplete. The craftsman copied it from an impression rather than the original matrix." She placed her genuine household seal beside it. Even from several feet away, the guests could see the missing line beneath the Wycliffe crest. Nathaniel spoke next. "Mr. Vane paid me to store those bottles in Her Grace's cabinet. He claimed they contained untaxed wine. When I discovered payments missing from the winter fund, I tried to inform the Duke. Vane's men imprisoned me beneath the ice cellar before my letter reached him. 'You accepted my money,' Vane said. 'Why should anyone trust you?' 'They should not trust me without evidence,' Nathaniel replied. 'That is why I hid the original ledger.' Eleanor opened the leather book. The false accounts listed payments to coal merchants, physicians, and food suppliers. The true ledger showed that those payments had passed through invented companies before reaching Vane's shipping business and Beatrice's family creditors. The village physician confirmed that several recorded deliveries had never arrived. Blackthorn's coal steward said the estate had received less than half the fuel listed in Vane's accounts. Then Eleanor produced the altered page found in her rooms. This was presented as a poison recipe written in my hand. But it was cut from the winter accounts. The remaining column marks match this ledger, and the quantities bear no relation to any medicine I prepare. Vane glanced toward Beatrice. She understood the warning but no longer obeyed it. "I copied Eleanor's handwriting," she confessed. "Vane gave me one of her old household notes and told me what to write." A murmur spread through the ballroom. Eleanor continued. "Sir Malcolm discovered the missing money. That made him the intended victim, not Adrian. Thomas presented the supper card showing that Sir Malcolm had been moved into the Duke's place. Lady Beatrice ordered me to change the cards," he said. "She claimed one of the guests had complained of a draft." Sir Malcolm raised a trembling hand from his chair. "She gave me the wine," he said. "I noticed the Duchess's keys at her wrist and assumed she carried the glass under Eleanor's authority." Every gaze turned toward Beatrice. "I poured the dose," she admitted. "Vane told me it would make Sir Malcolm ill long enough for us to remove the ledger. I knew Eleanor would be blamed." "And you accused her immediately," Adrian said. Beatrice looked directly at him. You believed me immediately." Silence followed. Adrian did not deny it. Vane gave a cold laugh. "You have proven Lady Beatrice poisoned him. You have not proven I ordered it." Eleanor unfolded the final page recovered from Beatrice. The payments to Vane's company were marked with dates and voucher numbers. Nathaniel explained that the original vouchers had been kept in Vane's office. The constable who arrested him opened a leather packet taken from his coat. Inside were the missing vouchers, a false passport, and a letter instructing Beatrice to ensure Sir Malcolm could not examine the winter accounts before dawn. The handwriting matched the instructions found beneath the counterfeit bottles. Vane's personal secretary, brought from the guest corridor, identified both as his employer's hand. Vane's confidence finally broke. "You cannot place the poison in my hand." "No," Eleanor said. "You placed it in hers because you intended Beatrice to carry the blame if the scheme failed." Beatrice closed her eyes. The chain was complete. Vane had used money from the winter fund to conceal Beatrice's father's debts and finance his own company. Sir Malcolm discovered the missing payments. Nathaniel hid the original ledger and was imprisoned. Beatrice poisoned Sir Malcolm, changed the seating cards, wore Eleanor's keys, and planted the false instructions. Vane had expected Adrian's pride to complete the scheme. It had. Adrian stepped into the center of the ballroom. "The Duchess has established her innocence," he said, "but that does not absolve me." The same guests who had watched Eleanor walk into the snow now turned toward him. "My wife warned me that wine was disappearing, and that the winter accounts did not match the deliveries. I dismissed her concerns because Silas Vane promised me political influence, while Eleanor demanded questions I did not wish to answer." His voice tightened. "I signed documents without reading them. I gave Vane access to Blackthorn's seal and accounts. When Lady Beatrice accused my wife, I refused to inspect the bottle, question the servants, or allow Eleanor to help Sir Malcolm." Adrian looked toward the terrace doors. "I took her keys and handed them to the woman who had helped frame her. Then I ordered my wife outside in winter without a cloak." No one moved. "Vane deceived me," Adrian continued, "but he did not force me to distrust Eleanor. He offered me a lie that protected my ambition, and I chose it." He removed his ducal signet and placed it beside the recovered ledger. "I withdraw from consideration for the Admiralty Committee. Every account connected to Vane will be surrendered for an independent examination. The missing winter fund will be restored from my private property before another payment is made from the estate." Then he faced Eleanor. "I will publish a correction wherever the accusation against you appears. It will name my conduct, not merely declare your innocence." Eleanor had once imagined how it might feel to hear Adrian defend her before the county. She had expected vindication. Instead, she felt the weight of everything his confession could not restore. 9 years of trust, her authority, and the moment the ballroom doors had closed behind her. The county magistrate arrived shortly after dawn. He took custody of Vane, Beatrice, the driver, and the recovered evidence. Beatrice's confession was recorded before witnesses. Nathaniel and Sir Malcolm were placed under protection until formal proceedings could begin. When the room had emptied, Adrian approached Eleanor. "There is one more wrong I must repair." He placed a second document on the table. It was a draft deed transferring Rosemere House, its surrounding land, and an independent annual income into a trust for Eleanor's sole benefit. Adrian would hold no authority over its accounts, infirmary, or staff. "I asked the family solicitor to prepare the original settlement years ago," he said. "I never completed it. Why?" "Because keeping you dependent upon Blackthorn made it easier to believe you would always remain." Eleanor read the first page but did not touch the pen. "This is restitution," she said. "It is not reconciliation." "I understand." "No, you understand the words. Whether you accept their meaning will be proven by what you do after I leave." Pain crossed his face. "Are you leaving Blackthorn?" Eleanor removed the key to the house from the ring at her waist. She placed it beside his signet. "Yes." 3 months later, the Crown completed its inquiry. Silas Vane was convicted of fraud, kidnapping, forgery, and conspiring to poison Sir Malcolm. His company's assets were seized, and the recovered money was returned to Blackthorn's winter fund. Lady Beatrice pleaded guilty to administering the poison, planting false evidence, and helping conceal the stolen accounts. Her confession reduced her sentence, but it did not erase her responsibility. Her family estate was placed under trustees, and part of its income was used to repay the tenants whose medicine and coal had been stolen. Nathaniel's name was publicly cleared. Eleanor offered him a position as independent auditor of the new tenant relief trust. He accepted on the condition that no duke, duchess, or steward could remove money without the signatures of two trustees. Sir Malcolm recovered slowly and confirmed Eleanor's innocence in a sworn statement. Adrian kept the promises he had made in the ballroom. He abandoned his political appointment, sold his London residence, and restored the winter fund from his private property before the seized assets were returned. Every newspaper that had repeated the poisoning accusation received a statement signed by him. It did not merely announce that Eleanor was innocent. It admitted that Adrian had ignored her warnings, transferred her authority without evidence, and ordered her into the snow because believing Beatrice had been easier than confronting his own ambition. He asked for no forgiveness. By spring, the deed for Rosemere House was complete. The property and its income were placed in a trust administered for Eleanor's sole benefit. Adrian retained no power over its accounts, staff, or infirmary. On the morning of her departure, Eleanor entered Blackthorn's ballroom for the final time. The stained carpet had been replaced. Sunlight filled the room where candles had once illuminated her humiliation. Adrian waited beside the terrace doors. The completed trust documents lay on a table between them. Eleanor read every page before signing. Adrian did not hurry her. "When will the infirmary open?" he asked. "In 6 weeks. Nathaniel will publish its accounts every quarter. Village women who wish to learn basic nursing will be trained and paid. It is the work you always wanted. It is the work I was already doing before you decided it belonged to someone else." Adrian lowered his eyes. "I remember the man you were when we married," Eleanor said. "You sat beside my mother through her illness. You rode through a storm to find medicine for a tenant's child. That man was real. So was the man who cast you out." "Yes." The answer hurt him, but he did not turn away from it. "I cannot ask you to trust me again," he said. "You may change. You may become worthy of trust again. But I am not required to remain here while you prove it." Adrian nodded. They would live separately. Any necessary correspondence would concern the estate and the relief trust. Their marriage would remain unresolved in law, but Eleanor's home, income, and work would no longer depend upon her husband's approval. She removed the key to Blackthorn Hall from the ring at her waist and placed it on the table. The keys to Rosemere and its infirmary remained in her hand. Outside, a carriage waited at the foot of the terrace. Nathaniel, Thomas, Sir Malcolm, and several village families had gathered in the courtyard. 3 months earlier, those doors had closed behind Eleanor while she stood in the snow without a cloak. Now Adrian opened them himself. Warm spring air entered the ballroom. Eleanor crossed the terrace wearing a dark blue traveling coat. No guards escorted her. No husband decided where she would go. Before entering the carriage, she looked at the new brass keys resting in her palm. Adrian had once taken her authority and placed it upon another woman's wrist. Now Eleanor carried the keys to a home no one could enter, govern, or take from her without her consent. The carriage moved toward Rosemere. This time, Eleanor did not look back.